Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started. Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Here we are for episode 120. Ani, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I am feeling successful.
Yeah?
On the inside.
Okay. It sounds like that's what we're talking about today.
That's what we are talking about today. We're talking about this idea that being successful on the inside takes more than being successful on the outside.
You know, it's funny you say that because I used to think, especially when we first started getting into coaching and developing our business years ago, that the people who were really successful on the outside all were super successful on the inside. I had this funny idea around it. And then the farther along I went, the more people I met, I realized that's not true.
Yeah, well, me too. I had the same, and I think that was probably a limiting belief that we shared.
Oh, yeah.
A huge.
I had to have it like all just right inside kind of thing, dialed.
Well, but also I think the limiting belief was that when we look at people outside of us that externally were more successful by Western world metrics, let's say.
Right, exactly.
Which we're going to talk about here in a moment. They had everything inside clicking, right? Yeah. Everything was working internally.
Inner peace, abundance.
And so there was,
focus.
It was really kind of, it was interesting to have that belief, and then to have that belief like be hit over the head with it like a lot, and realize, oh my God, like that's not actually true. Mm-hmm. Because I think we've both met and worked with many people that by all accounts were very successful or are very successful externally, but they are the most unhappy, miserable people internally than you could ever meet in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so I always thought that was like some aberration. So it was like, oh, well, that's just an aberration because everybody is successful on the outside is already successful on the inside. And I realized that was actually not the aberration. That's more the norm for people.
Yes.
Right. And so as we're having this conversation, we just want to say out loud that we're not saying in this conversation that external success is wrong, bad, not good.
Oh, of course.
And we're not saying that internal success is the best thing ever and it's the pure and all that kind of stuff. We're just kind of bringing to the awareness that we've worked with a lot of people who by all metrics are successful externally, but internally are not successful. And we've also met people that internally are pretty successful, but don't actually exhibit or display the outer success that you attribute with Western morals and values.
Right. Because what does success really mean, Brian?
Well, that's the point. What does it mean? It's very personal to each of us.
Yeah, it's very personal. And we have these kind of societal benchmarks around especially with all the social media stuff, really baffles me when we look back at our lives over the past 20 years or whatever, and look at when we didn't have cell phones or before there was text messaging or whatever. Like, social media hasn't been around forever, right? But with social media in our lives, I think that definitely highlights what we think is successful as society and what we think other people have. And
well, the whole law of relativity really kind of comes into play, right?
Wacky,
and so you can fall into
wacky.
You can even be suckered into a con where someone on social media looks like they're super successful. And so we give them a bunch of money to help us become externally successful. And they're actually not really that successful.
We think they're internally successful because they wear pretty clothes.
Because they have all the external success, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
so the first thing.
Pictures look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing we just want to kind of debunk here is that external by West. So let's just maybe place this first. What are we talking about when we talk about external success from a Western sense, a Western world sense of and maybe we can actually say global too, because I think this all around the world, I think a lot of people
Like
attribute
industrial,
external success to things like having money,
having
right?
enough money.
Having a
Yep.
lot, having enough, not only enough, but a
But
lot,
abundance.
an excess and abundance of money. Okay.
Yeah, and how much does kind of depend on where in the world you are,
Right.
because that's different
Right. But
for
even
different.
if, but
But
even if you're in a
having
village
enough and having
somewhere
an
in a third
abundance.
world country, if you're the person in the village with more resources than anyone else in the village, they would probably consider you to be the most externally successful.
Sure.
Right. So
Yep.
let's just say
If
that.
you had the best looking donkey.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, we have you have more resources externally. So money, possessions. So go back to like the best looking donkey, or the most donkeys, or the most cows, or the most pigs, or the most sheep, or the most houses, or whatever. So we're talking about money,
Possessions.
possessions, social status,
Yeah, yep.
right? So I would think everybody would agree that that's kind of a marker of Western success. Power,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means that you have the ability to make decisions that affect more people than just yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would kind of consider that being powerful.
Right.
Like if you can change policy that affects 100 people, 1,000 people,
Sure.
10,000 people, a million people, I think most people from the Western world would say that's
Mm-hmm.
power
Mm-hmm.
and attribute of external success.
Yeah.
Fame,
Yep.
right?
Which is really important to a lot of
Yeah, so a lot of people
folks right now.
recognizability, fame, like
Yeah.
that's kind of a marker
Mm-hmm.
also of external. So we're talking about those kinds of things: money, possession, social status, power, fame.
Right.
And so again, we've worked with a lot of people who, by all margins, relatively speaking, have more of those things than other people, but aren't necessarily exhibiting what we might call inner success.
Sure. Well, what would that be?
Well, so inner success, well, well, let's talk about that. Yeah. So what does inner success look like? Well, it really looks like just having really true inner peace.
I was thinking like this is not the right way to phrase it, but less internal conflict.
Yeah, less internal conflict. Yeah, more internal peace, less conflict. Um, Lightheartedness, living with lightheartedness, living with really contentment,
Mm-hmm.
a sense of what I would call like living gratitude. Like gratitude is
Right.
alive in someone, not just I'm making a list of things I'm grateful for.
Right. Practice you do on Sundays for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't really feel emotionally connected to it,
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Like emotionally connected to life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And you're really grateful for all of life. You're grateful for everything that you have in life,
Right.
right? And everything that happens in life. Really detached from most what most other people would consider problems.
I'm thinking like healthy, like mentally, emotionally healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, mentally, emotionally healthy, for sure. And by the way, you could be physically not like a
That's
specimen or physically actually ill, physical specimen.
like
Yeah,
you're a specimen.
yeah, I'm a specimen. But you could also have like things going on in your physical body, but still be exhibiting internal success,
Right.
right? So
Right.
there's actually, and that's not a disconnect because we live in a
No.
physical world. We live in a physical world, even as non-physical beings, we live in a physical world. And in the material physical world and having a body, like sometimes things happen with your body
Yeah.
that you need to meet from a spiritual place.
Right. I was just gonna use the word spirit. So to have a connection, really strong, healthy connection with your spiritual nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way I kind of frame it up is being in the world, but not of it.
Hmm.
Being in the world, but not of it. I just love that phrase that when really you have inner success, it's that you recognize that you live in a material world, but you realize you're not actually of that
A
world.
material girl.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's what it looks like when you have inner success. So, but let's bounce back to this outer success idea again, because inner success, in my experience, is much more rare.
Oh,
and
for
then outer success.
sure.
And so we think about people who
For sure.
like to achieve things.
Mm-hmm.
People who like to achieve things, people who like to set goals around bringing in more money, or like to set goals around their fitness, or like to set
Uh,
goals around their experiences or the possessions that they have. A lot of people, we set goals around all those markers of external success. We
yeah.
set goals around money.
Yep.
We set goals around acquiring possessions.
Mm-hmm.
We set goals around our social status. We set goals around having more power and influence and control. And we set goals around our recognizability or our fame. A lot of people we work with set goals in those areas.
Yeah. A lot of people don't really set the inner goals so much. And I think they probably have a hard time articulating what that is too, or what that looks like, or even having enough, well, I was going to say experience with it, but also other people around us to be able to, because one of the reasons we set goals is we see other people achieving them.
Right. Yeah. Externally.
Exactly.
Right. So
Yeah.
we're actually kind of always kind of living in that external feedback mechanism, which is why I think it's actually easier to achieve external goals than as internal
Mhm.
goals.
Yeah.
But we keep chasing these external goals, thinking
Yeah. It's going to get us
thinking
the
it's going to
internals.
change something internally, and it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
But let's actually just talk about when we think about achieving external goals, external status, external, let's just say success. Let's just sum it up as success, all these things that we talked about. You can achieve external success either through, I think this is interesting, either through ethical or unethical means,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can actually achieve external success. Well, let's look at some of the potentially ethical ones first, like birth privilege. I'm not saying that's either ethical or unethical, but that's one way that people achieve external success.
What do you mean?
They're just born into it.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
They're born
Yeah.
into families with
Sure.
plenty of resources, plenty of opportunities. They go to the best schools. They meet the best, meet the people that can actually help them create more success.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just say out loud that many times external success is really like just birth privilege.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
just, but that's a huge part of it.
It's a huge leg up.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that people will really attribute external success to are things like hard work and hustle,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like hard work, and because then we feel like we're earning it, we deserve it. And I'm not saying those things are wrong or bad, but that is one way that you kind of earn external success
Yeah.
is through hard work and hustle, right? And
Yeah.
so that can be a good thing.
Yeah.
And it also can be a challenging thing, depending on how you use it.
Also see the flip side of that with folks who kind of say that they get external success through, let's just say, alignment or connection or the more quote unquote feminine way. I'm not saying that that's that. I'm saying that's how people talk about it. And in that way, it's like, oh, I'm super connected and I'm super aligned. So things just really come to me.
Mhm.
And there's so many, so much stuff that comes up internally when people are trying to do that in terms of how to get their external success. It's just, I mean, I've gotten jammed up around that so many times in my own life.
Interesting.
Because I thought that in order to make the external success work in a quote unquote feminine way, I had to be so pure, clean, aligned internally. But that wasn't necessarily how it was working for other
Yeah,
folks.
right. Yeah, that would make
Felt
sense.
like it's all mucky.
Yeah. So the other way that people can achieve external success is actually through conformity. Like,
Yeah, for
if
sure.
I just like, okay, so I'm going to get I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get really good grades, and by the way, hard work could be a part of that, or it could be birth privilege, right? It could just be
Yeah.
born and be really a smart cookie right from the start. And so you get really good grades, you get into a really good college, and then from there you get a really good internship, and then from there you get into a really good job, and you're just you go up through the ranks by conforming
Mm-hmm.
to the what people would lay out for you as the pathways to success,
Yeah, sure.
right? So
Yeah.
people can be really successful that way.
Yeah.
All those things aren't necessarily bad things, but those are pathways.
Yeah.
You can also, though, create external success through things like bullying,
Or
right?
manipulation.
Bullying, manipulation, narcissism, like conning,
Yeah.
like all those kinds of are also ways to achieve external success. Let's just say,
Yeah.
right? So that's why
Yeah.
we're saying external success isn't necessarily a bad thing. Is it a bad thing when you achieve it through those ways? Well, it's certainly going to have some. There's going to be some type of law of cause and effect associated with that. You can't get away with that forever.
We're not judging it as bad. Good, bad's all mixed up. But is it gonna like come back and cause some issues?
Oh, it always will for you or the people around you or,
In some way.
yeah, in some way, shape, or form. But I just think it's interesting, again, this external success, it can be created or achieved either through ethical means or, not non-ethical means or really unethical means
Right.
sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but when you look at inner success can only be achieved through ethical means.
I'm just laughing at myself thinking about ways that people try to achieve inner success. And not to say it's ethical or unethical, but people try all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, right?
Yeah.
And and like, damn it when it doesn't work sustainably.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like it eludes people. It eludes people so much.
Yeah. Yeah. The inner success
The inner
does
success.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, again, we've both met a lot of people with with outward success, people who have what you might think is plenty of money. But what's interesting is oftentimes when people are solely outer success oriented, no matter how much that plenty of money is, it's never
Never
enough
enough.
money. Right? And there's always some type of
Lack.
lack. But also, you know what? It's not only that there's never enough money, there's also never enough respect. There's never enough love. There's never enough health. There's something that's still driving the person from a sense of lack, which is actually causing them to achieve more external success to try to overcome the internal sense of lack
Lack. Yeah.
that they have. Right. And that's what I was always dismayed about because I thought that people with plenty of external success, they already felt whole inside.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's
Yeah.
why they had that external success. But that's the rarer person.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
more rare to cultivate external success from a place of feeling whole inside. It's much more common to generate external success from a place of emptiness inside.
Yeah. That drives people.
Right, and we've seen that. And so then you might think, well, who cares, Brian? I want the outer success. I don't care about the emptiness inside. I want to have the outer. Well,
Well, you care when it's eating you up
you care
inside
when it
every
starts
day.
eating you up inside. You care when you wake up and you feel like you have no purpose, when your relationships are
When you're
hollow, when
lonely,
you're lonely, when your health is
when your health
suffering,
suffers
because
for
you
sure.
will always start to see it there. And that's where we see it start to crack in people first,
Well,
right?
is the health, but
Yeah,
the thing is, it's not like the relationship stuff wasn't in their life, the relationship
correct.
problems, but
Exactly.
there, but they'll really start to do something about it when it starts to erode health.
Right, exactly. And these things are not mutually exclusive, by the way, either. I want to be very clear about that. It's not like if you have internal success, you won't have external success, although you relate to it differently
Differently.
because it's not as important to you anymore. When you truly have internal success, the external success is no longer as important. So it doesn't mean that you don't create it, but you create it for different reasons. You're not creating it because you're trying to fill up a void inside. You're creating it because it serves more people and it serves more internal success for more people other than yourself, right? It just comes from it comes from a whole different place. And so how do you achieve internal success? And we already noted like internal you cannot lie about internal success to yourself
To
around it.
yourself.
You can't lie to
Yeah.
yourself about it. You can't trick yourself. You can't manipulate yourself. You can't cheat yourself. You can't bully yourself, which are all means that people might use to create external success for themselves is bullying, manipulation, lying, narcissism, all that kind of stuff. But you can't do that and get internal success. right? Internal success can only be created through ethical means. Things like clearing out patterns of attachment and fear, you know?
Yeah. I'm just remembering we were watching a movie last night, and the one of the main characters at the end, and I'm not going to give it away even what the story was like being tormented by a
Yeah.
lack of inner success, right?
Yeah.
Because there was so much that they had to let go of to be able to be at peace.
Yeah. Yep.
And they
Yeah.
all their lives had been carrying around like, lack of forgiveness, and
Yeah.
understanding and
Right. Right.
acceptance, and right. And that stuff just torments people
Yeah.
in their
Yeah,
lives.
exactly. So
You
those are,
can't manipulate your way out of
you
it.
cannot manipulate, you can't bully your way out of it. You can't buy your way out of it.
You can't buy
You
your way out of it.
cannot buy your way out of it. And
Yep.
that's essentially, again, as you get closer and closer to the moment where we transition to whatever is next. And I think a lot of this understanding too, or experience maybe for me, comes out of my work with people in hospice
100%. Yeah.
who I've been with people when they've transitioned actually. And it's always interesting to me. A lot of the people I've worked with a lot of means like in
Yeah.
their physical world, they have very difficult transitions. And there's so much they're still attached to that they've created, built, possessed during their life. And when I was working with folks and going through that experience, I was like, I do not want that to be my last experience here on the
Mm-hmm.
planet. I want to be able to leave and just be at peace. And I've worked with people in hospice who've just been at complete peace, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what, if I have to spend my whole life working to that experience at the end, I think that's a worthwhile life.
I've learned so much about inner success from my work with hospice, and I feel really fortunate to have had that experience when I was in college. My mentor was pretty big into hospice, and so I found my way there. And I did my grad work around hospice and all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff. I wouldn't have found that. I feel like it was a little divine intervention because I don't think I would have sought that work out, but it tremendously informed who I wanted to be in
Mhm.
my life based on working with those folks.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It's such
really
a
does.
amazing
It is
teacher.
formative, isn't it? It's
It really
very,
is.
very formative.
Yeah.
So, other ways about kind of achieving this internal inner success, it's like really living in alignment with the natural laws, I think is one of the best ways to be successful in your whole life, but internally to be aligned with the way that everything happens.
I agree with you because otherwise we're orienting how we think about ourselves in life from kind of man-made principles. But when we orient how we think about ourselves and life from the natural laws, we're aligned with creation.
Hmm.
And you kind of can't go wrong,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And again, this pathway is much more rare than the external success pathway. So really the invitation here is that if you are really someone who wants to and is driven to let's just use the word achieve the highest level of success in your life, it must include internal success. External success will never fill up the internal needs, changes,
Void.
void, things like letting go of the need to control. Could you imagine if you just let go of the need to control things and then people are like, oh my God, but then I won't have that external success,
Are you talking to me?
right?
Were you talking to me?
Well, I guess I'm
No,
looking at
I'm
you,
just
but
kidding. You.
we have clients who are like, you have to let go of the need to control. And they're like, what do you mean let go of the need to control? What's going to get done? We're not going to make the sales. We're not going to drive the revenue. We're not going to do all those kinds of
Nothing's
things.
gonna get done at home.
Right. So how confrontational is it even the idea to let go of the need of control? And we ask, well, what would that imagine what that would feel like? And they're like,
I'm,
I don't even imagine because that's never something I've ever thought that I've wanted, even though the people are bundled up, their nervous system is all wound up in knots and all those kinds of things because they're trying to control every little thing in their
in their
life.
experience, yeah.
Right. So, but that's a part of internal success is letting go of that need to control. And this work happens really deep in your own belief wiring, right? It really happens deep in your own soma, in your body.
That's why the sensation-based approach is so important to it. I mean, there are so many books on internal success, ancient books and new age books. And anytime I'm reading any of them, I just got a new one recently that's kind of cool, and more related specifically to like athletics.
Mm.
Anytime I'm reading them, when they talk about anything related to emotions, I'm like, the sensation-based
Yeah.
approach, man, is the secret portal.
Yep, it is.
It's a secret portal. It's not. I haven't taken psychedelics, not psychedelics, in my opinion. It's like the secret portal that people are looking for, the magic pill, which is
Yeah.
why I said psychedelics. And all of these different, hanging on your head and whatever kinds of things. It's like the secret portal is a sensation-based approach.
Yeah, well, I think that for what I've heard about psychedelics, that many people I've talked to about it, I've never done psychedelics, but the person that people I've talked to about it, I certainly have had psychedelic experiences. If you listen back to a couple of podcasts we did ago, but the psychedelics, what they do is they, in a lot of ways, my understanding is strip away a lot of the barriers to directly confronting the limiting patterns that you have in your nervous system. And so that's why that psychedelics can be very, uh, well, not only confronting, but potentially dangerous if you don't have support in doing it.
Right. And
Because you
so
come into,
sustainable.
yeah, because you come into direct relationship with parts of yourself that other parts of yourself do not want you to come into contact with.
Right.
And so you need help integrating that. Like it's so important that that is integrated. That's why to do psychedelic work, you need to do it with people who've done it a lot, not just taking themselves on a few trips, but they do this professionally. This is what they do. They're able to support, integrate. Integration is huge. And, we've worked with people that use sensation-based motivation coaching as an integrative tool. And it's been incredibly powerful because I think that's really what the work that we do is use these things to help people integrate those experiences so that they can really let go of those habituated patterns
Right.
and step into something greater.
Because even if you're using things that kind of you think can help you to get to that internal success experience, the sensation-based approach still is like the magic portal. Even if you have other external stuff that
Yeah.
you're trying to do
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is really the ultimate achievement. The ultimate achievement in your life is to transcend the identities that you've unconsciously adopted in your life, right? Because we unconsciously adopt these identities early in our lives, and then those identities drive you to make the decisions to create external success for whatever reason that you're doing it. But here's really the punchline. The reason why most people really focus on outer achievement, it's really about avoiding pain. They want to
Yeah. Yeah.
avoid pain,
Right.
right?
Which goes
And
back to the sensation-based approach.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then you might think, well, I'm not really avoiding pain by working my ass off, Brian, and working 80-hour weeks. But here's the thing. The pain of working the 80-hour week is still less than the pain of what you would experience if you didn't work those 80-hour weeks. The pain that's so confronting to your identity, if you didn't have that, and that all comes from that deep unconscious conditioning that we get. So most people are overachieving in the external world because they are avoiding a pain. Inner success is about transcending that pain.
So I was going to ask you, and I still will, but I'm going to answer my own question first. What is one of the biggest inner successes that you've had?
In terms of my experience,
Your own inner success. Yeah, like what's one of the biggest inner successes you've had? But I'm going to answer the question first based on what we're talking about right now because it
okay.
goes with it. One of the biggest inner successes that I have had in my life is recognizing that because I'm a human, I'm going to experience pain and physical, emotional pain specifically was where I was at when I had this realization that I was going to embrace pain as a part of the human experience.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest moments of inner success. I remember the realization that I had that I was trying to avoid pain and I was going to instead embrace it as a part of the human experience. And my life has been so much better since then.
Mm-hmm.
especially because of the sensation-based tools that we use,
Yeah.
knowing that pain is a construct.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious for you, do
I would say that
you,
there's two things. One of them is very similar to what you just said. For me, that a really embodied sense that that pain is a part of life, but suffering is optional,
mhm.
right? So pain's a part of being human, but suffering is optional. Like suffering is a choice. I can suffer with that pain, or I can just accept it as being an experience that an unpleasant experience that I'm having. But the other part of that uh, is that every experience I'm having is information for me. It's
Yeah,
all information.
yeah,
It's all information for what? It's all information for me. And not to get too kind of morose about this, but for me to have a peaceful exit from the physical world. That's a lot of my life. And we've talked about this over dinner
oh
and we
yeah.
talk with the kids. Our kids are like, would you stop talking about dying? And I'm like, but part of my goal of living, and I've had this goal for a really long time, probably ever since I was 14 years old when my grandmother passed away and I saw her just it's like
Suffer.
suffering so horribly. I thought, I never want that experience in my life. And so that's when I really started getting in the study of Buddhism and Taoism and those sorts of things because I want to be able to leave this world on my own terms. And by my own terms, not the way it might happen. I could get hit in a bus by a bus. I don't know. But I want to leave the world in peace. I want to leave the world being content and peaceful and not feel like there's any attachment or longing to things. And so, as far as inner success, like I've felt myself having that experience or getting felt like I'm having closer to that experience every year.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's a continued evolution as well. But that's when the information that I get from any experience that I have, I always funnel into that. How can I help this with me transitioning in on my terms
Hmm.
at the end of my time here?
Yeah. I don't think I know you do because we've talked about it kind of a lot. I don't think about it quite as much as that. I think more about like the life I'm going to live and how I probably have. I'm 47 now, and I figure I got a damn long time ahead of
Mm,
me, probably with the length of people's lives at this
yep.
point. I might not have even made it to 50%. I'd really like as many
Mm,
days and years and moments to be great days and years and moments, because I got a long, long time ahead of me, probably.
yeah. 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 There's so many things. I mean, I could also say just to be able to be present with things, just be able to be present with the cold or present with the rain or present with the whatever it is. I mean, there's all kinds of markers of internal success that just makes life so rich,
Rich, yeah.
just so rich.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not sure how we want to wrap up this episode, this podcast, other than saying that there's a whole opportunity to experience inner success and to be one of the less common individuals on the planet that really live from that place on a day-to-day basis.
And it's important to be around other people who are like that when you want to be like that, because there's plenty of people who aren't. And, your life changes based on the vibrational frequency that you place yourself in. The communities and the people that you're around are really important to making choices about who you're putting yourself around. That's a thing that people with external success often say.
Hmm.
And it's the principle that actually is true. And I find that actually a lot of people who are looking for external success get themselves in communities where they think there's going
Hmm.
to be internal success there, and then they're unhappy with finding that they're not. So, look for communities and people that you can be around. And, very oftentimes in this day and age, it's in the virtual world, and that's okay. One of the things that I read in a book, gosh, I've probably read this multiple places, but that actually it's important that we're those of us who are seeking and working towards and sincere about embodying inner success is that we're actually spread out around the planet for a reason.
Hmm.
We're supposed to be spread out around the planet, and because of our, so that we can really create the most change. And in order to be with our people and find your tribe and find, like minded individuals, very oftentimes will happen in virtual spaces. And then when you're going to be in person with each other, you travel to be able to be together. But that's important too.
Yeah. So it's really about, again, just raising the vibrational frequency of consciousness on this planet. And you do that through internal success, not external success.
Yep. So look forward to hearing your comments and thoughts and insights, light bulb moments about today's podcast. Leave comments below. You know where to find us. And until next time, we'll see you then.
See you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.